The plate looked perfect. Almost too perfect. Brianna Mitchell stood in the kitchen doorway of Azure Heights, the city's most expensive restaurant, watching Chef Pierre add the final garnish to the evening's special order. Dover sole with lemon butter sauce, asparagus tips and tiny purple flowers arranged like a work of art. Everything was exactly as it should be. The golden fish glistened under the heat lamps. The asparagus stood at attention. The sauce pooled in delicate swirls. But something was wrong. Brianna's grandmother used to say that food tells you its secrets if you pay attention. Most people just looked at a plate and saw dinner. Brianna saw a language, a story, a warning. And right now this plate was screaming danger. The purple flowers. They were slightly darker than they should be. The edges were crispy instead of fresh. And there was a smell, so faint that no one else would catch it, hidden underneath the lemon and butter. Bitter. Sure. Wrong. Table 7 ready to go, Pierre called out, sliding the plate onto the serving station. Brianna's heart hammered. Table 7. The man in the gray suit who had arrived 20 minutes ago with 2 bodyguards. The man everyone in the kitchen was whispering about because he'd reserved the entire private dining room and tipped the host $200 just for being seated quickly. The man whose credit card made the manager's eyes go wide. Andrew Bennett. The billionaire CEO whose face appeared in business magazines and charity event photos. The man who owned half the tech companies in the state and employed thousands of people. And someone was trying to poison him. Brianna didn't think. She just moved. Her hands grabbed another plate from the warming station, an identical order that had been prepared for table 9. In one smooth motion, she swapped them, sliding the suspicious plate to the side and the safe one onto her serving tray. Brianna, what are you doing? Pierre's voice rose. That's table 9's order. Table 9 asked for no asparagus. She lied, her voice steady even as her pulse raced. I'll fix it. Just need to plate another one. She didn't wait for his response. She lifted the tray and walked through the swinging doors into the dining room, her red uniform dress swishing with each step. The private dining room sat at the back of the restaurant, separated by frosted glass doors. Through them, she could see the man in the gray suit sitting alone, reading something on his phone. The bodyguard stood outside the doors. They watched her approach with cold eyes. Dinner for Mr. Bennett, she said quietly. One of them opened the door. The other watched her hands, her tray, her face. Looking for threats. She wondered if they knew the real threat had been in the kitchen all along. Andrew Bennett looked up as she entered. He was younger than she expected, maybe late 30s, with dark hair and tired eyes. He wore his wealth quietly in the cut of his suit and the watch on his wrist. But his face was drawn, and there were shadows under his eyes that no amount of money could hide. Your Dover sole, sir, Brianna said, placing the plate in front of him with careful hands. Please enjoy. He nodded, barely looking at her. His attention was already back on his phone. She should have left. Should have walked out and let him eat in peace. But she couldn't. What if she was wrong? What if the plate she'd taken away was perfectly fine and she just committed a fireable offense for nothing? What if she was right? Sir, she heard herself say. I apologize for the interruption. But I noticed you've been coming here for several months. He looked up, surprised. People didn't talk to him, she realized. They took his orders and brought his food and disappeared. I have, he said slowly. Is there a problem? No, sir. I just wanted to say that we appreciate your patronage. And if there's ever anything we can do to make your experience better, please let us know. It was a nothing statement. The kind of thing waitresses said 100 times a night. But she needed him to look at her, to remember her face in case she needed to talk to him later. His eyes met hers and for a moment, something passed between them. Recognition maybe. Or just exhaustion meeting exhaustion. Thank you, he said. I'll remember that. She left the dining room, her heart still pounding. Back in the kitchen, she found the suspicious plate exactly where she'd left it. No one had touched it. No one had noticed. She carried it to the back, to the service area where they scraped plates before washing them. But instead of scraping it, she took a photo with her phone. Every angle. The flowers. The fish. The sauce. Evidence in case she needed it. Then she carefully removed the purple flowers and wrapped them in a napkin. She'd take them home tonight. Maybe she was being paranoid. Maybe they were just wilted and that's why they looked off. But her grandmother had taught her about plants, about herbs and flowers, about which ones healed and which ones killed. And these flowers, she was almost certain, were not meant for eating. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. She served tables, smiled at customers, poured water and wine and coffee. But her mind was in that private dining room, wondering if she'd done the right thing. Wondering if Andrew Bennett would finish his meal and walk out healthy. wondering if tomorrow she'd see news about a billionaire's sudden illness. At 11 o'clock she clocked out. Her feet ached from 8 hours in heels. Her back hurt from carrying heavy trays. But she was alive, and as far as she knew, so was Andrew Bennett. She was walking through the back hallway toward the employee exit when she heard her name. Brianna Mitchell. She turned. Andrew Bennett stood in the hallway, his bodyguards flanking him. He'd finished dinner. He was leaving. And somehow he knew her name. "Mr. Bennett," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Can I help you?" He studied her face for a long moment. "That's an interesting question. Because I think you already did." Her throat went dry. "Sir?" "I've been eating here twice a week for 6 months," he said quietly. "Always the same table. Always the same order. And tonight, for the first time, I felt good after eating. No nausea. No headache. No exhaustion that hits me like a truck an hour after I leave." He took a step closer. His eyes were sharp now, not tired at all. "What did you do to my food?" Brianna's mind raced. She could lie. Should lie. This man had bodyguards and lawyers and probably a dozen ways to make her life difficult if he thought she'd tampered with his meal. But he was still alive. And he was looking at her like she held answers he desperately needed. "I switched your plate," she said simply. "The original one had something wrong with it. I couldn't let you eat it." The silence stretched between them. One of the bodyguards moved, hand going to his jacket, but Andrew raised a hand to stop him. "Why?" Andrew asked. "Because the flowers were wrong. And the smell was off. And my grandmother taught me that food is supposed to make you stronger, not weaker. That plate would have made you sick or worse." He stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly he pulled out his wallet. He removed a business card and handed it to her. "I need to talk to you," he said. "Not here. Somewhere private. Tomorrow morning if you're willing. Have you ever noticed something others couldn't see, something that could save a life? What would you do if you had the chance to help someone powerful who didn't even know they were in danger? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And please subscribe to hear what happens next in this story, because Brianna's decision to swap that plate is about to change both their lives forever. Brianna looked at the card. Andrew Bennett, CEO, Bennett Technologies. A phone number. An email address. "Why would you want to talk to me?" she asked. "Because either you just saved my life or you're involved in trying to end it. And I need to know which one." His voice wasn't threatening, just tired and honest. "Please. I'm asking for help." The word "please" from a billionaire. That wasn't something she'd expected. "Tomorrow morning," she said, taking the card. "What time?" 8 o'clock. "There's a coffee shop called Morning Brew on 5th Street. It's public, safe. Bring someone with you if you want. I just need answers." She nodded. "I'll be there." He studied her face one more time, then turned and walked away, his bodyguards following. The back door closed behind them and she was alone in the hallway. Brianna looked down at the business card in her hand. Then she reached into her pocket and felt the napkin with the purple flowers. Tomorrow she would tell him everything she suspected. Tonight she would do research. Because if someone was poisoning Andrew Bennett, they weren't going to stop just because she'd swapped one plate. And somehow, without meaning to, she just stepped into the middle of something dangerous. The walk home took 20 minutes. She lived in a small apartment she shared with her younger brother, Tyler, who was in his second year at community college. The rent was high and the space was cramped, but it was theirs. She'd worked 3 jobs to keep them both afloat after their parents died, and she'd do anything to give Tyler the future their mom and dad had wanted for him. Tyler was asleep when she got home, sprawled on the couch with textbooks scattered around him. She pulled a blanket over him and went to her room. At her desk, she opened her laptop and searched for purple flowers used as garnish. It took an hour of research, comparing images to her memory before she found it. Monkshood. Also called wolfsbane. Beautiful purple flowers that looked delicate and ornamental. And one of the most poisonous plants in the world. Every part of it was toxic. The roots, the leaves, the flowers. In small doses, repeated over time, it would cause nausea, weakness, irregular heartbeat. Symptoms that could be mistaken for stress or illness. In larger doses, it could kill. Someone had been feeding this to Andrew Bennett for months, slowly poisoning him while he ate in a restaurant that cost $300 a plate, surrounded by people he trusted. Brianna sat back in her chair, her hands shaking. She'd been right. She'd actually been right. And now she had to decide what to do with that knowledge. She looked at the business card again. Andrew Bennett, CEO. A man with more money than she could imagine, more power than she would ever have. A man who said please, and looked at her like she mattered. A man someone wanted dead. Tomorrow morning she would meet him at Morning Brew. She would show him her research. She would tell him everything. And then she would walk away back to her normal life, knowing she'd done the right thing. But as she lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, she had a feeling that walking away wasn't going to be that simple. Because she'd seen his face when he realized someone was trying to kill him. She'd heard the exhaustion in his voice when he asked for help. And Brianna Mitchell had never been good at leaving people alone when they needed her. Tomorrow would change everything. She just didn't know how much. The night stretched on and she stared at the ceiling, thinking about purple flowers and poison plates and a billionaire who trusted the wrong people. Somewhere in this city someone was planning their next move. Someone who thought Andrew Bennett was dying slowly and according to plan. But they hadn't counted on a waitress with her grandmother's knowledge and a conscience that wouldn't let her look away. Brianna closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and prepared herself for whatever tomorrow would bring. The game had changed. And she was now part of it, whether she wanted to be or not. Morning Brew was the kind of coffee shop that college students loved and business people avoided. Mismatched chairs, art on the walls from local painters, and coffee that actually tasted like coffee instead of sugar and cream. Brianna arrived 15 minutes early, wearing jeans and a green sweater, carrying a folder with her research and the napkin with the monkshood flowers sealed in a plastic bag. She ordered a regular coffee and sat at a table near the window where she could see the street. Her phone showed 7:52. 8 minutes until Andrew Bennett arrived, assuming he actually showed up. There was a chance this whole thing was in her head. A chance she'd panicked over nothing and was about to embarrass herself in front of one of the richest men in the city. But the research didn't lie. And neither did his face last night when he admitted he'd been feeling sick for months. At exactly 8 o'clock, a black car pulled up outside. Andrew Bennett stepped out, wearing jeans and a dark blue jacket. No suit today. No bodyguards either, at least not visible ones. He looked like any other person grabbing morning coffee, except for the watch that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. He saw her through the window and nodded. A minute later, he walked in, ordered something at the counter, and joined her at the table. "Thank you for coming," he said, sitting down across from her. "I wasn't sure you would." "You said please," Brianna replied. "And you looked like you needed help." He smiled slightly. "I don't hear that word much." "Please. Most people just tell me what I want to hear." "I'm not most people." "I'm starting to understand that." He leaned forward, his expression serious. "Tell me what you saw last night." "Everything." So she did. She described the plate, the garnish, the slight discoloration of the flowers, the bitter smell that didn't belong. She told him about her grandmother, who had raised her in Georgia and taught her about plants. How they'd spent summers in the garden, learning which herbs healed headaches and which leaves could stop a wound from bleeding. How her grandmother had also taught her which plants to never touch, never eat, never trust. "She said nature gives us everything we need," Brianna explained. "Medicine and food and beauty. But it also gives us warnings. If something looks off or smells wrong, there's usually a reason." Andrew listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You think someone at the restaurant is poisoning me?" he said finally. "I think someone is poisoning you," Brianna corrected. "Whether it's at the restaurant or before the food gets there, I don't know. But yes." She pulled out her folder and slid it across the table. Inside was her research, printed articles about monkshood, images of the flowers, descriptions of the symptoms. "I took these from your plate last night," she said, pushing the plastic bag toward him. "I can't be 100% certain without testing them, but I'm pretty sure these are monkshood flowers. They're toxic. In small amounts, over time, they'd make you feel exactly how you described. Sick, tired, weak. Like you have the flu that never quite goes away." Andrew picked up the bag, studying the dried purple flowers through the plastic. His face had gone very still. "How long have you been eating at Azure Heights?" Brianna asked quietly. 6 months. Maybe 7. I started going there after." He stopped, his jaw tightening. "After my wife died. I couldn't stand eating at home. Too many memories. So I found a place that was quiet and private and served good food." "You order the same thing every time?" "Usually. The Dover sole is my favorite." "And you've been feeling sick for how long?" 4 months, maybe 5. He looked up at her, and there was something raw in his eyes. "My doctor ran every test. Everything came back normal. He said it was stress, that I was working too hard, that I needed to rest. But I knew something was wrong. I just couldn't prove it." "You can prove it now," Brianna said. "Have those flowers tested. Have your blood tested. If I'm right, they'll find traces of the poison." He nodded slowly. "I will. But that's not enough. I need to know who. And why. Do you have enemies?" He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I run a multi-billion-dollar company. I make decisions that affect thousands of jobs. I've shut down competitors, fired executives, rejected buyout offers. Of course I have enemies. But someone who would kill you? That's what I need to figure out. He ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly tired. And I can't do it alone. I can't trust the people around me because one of them might be doing this. Brianna's coffee had gone cold. She wrapped her hands around the cup anyway, needing something to hold on to. What are you going to do? She asked. Hire a private investigator. Have everything tested. Maybe set a trap, see who takes the bait. He paused. But I'm also going to need someone who can watch my food. Someone who knows what to look for. He was looking at her. Really looking at her, like he was trying to see past her skin and bones to whatever was underneath. I'll pay you, he said. Whatever you make at the restaurant, I'll triple it. You work for me, come to my dinners, my meetings, anywhere food is served. You check everything before I eat it. You're my safety net. Brianna's first instinct was to say no. To tell him this was crazy, that she was just a waitress who got lucky, that she wasn't qualified to be anyone's food tester. But then she thought about Tyler. About his college loans. About the second job she worked on weekends at a grocery store, stocking shelves for minimum wage, because one restaurant paycheck wasn't enough. She thought about their apartment with the leaking faucet she couldn't afford to fix and the heating that barely worked in winter. She thought about this man sitting across from her in a coffee shop, asking for help because he didn't know who else to trust. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Just like that. Just like that. But I have conditions. She held up a finger. 1. I need to keep my apartment. I'm not moving into some mansion or living on site or anything like that. I have a brother who needs me. Agreed. 2. If I say something is wrong with food, you listen. You don't question me in the moment. We can discuss it later, but when I say don't eat, you don't eat. Agreed. 3. When we catch whoever is doing this, I'm done. I go back to my normal life. This isn't permanent. Andrew was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. Agreed. Though I hope you'll consider staying on after. I think I'm going to need someone I can trust for a long time. He pulled out a checkbook and wrote something, then slid it across the table. Brianna looked down at a check made out to her for $10,000. That's for saying yes, Andrew said. And for saving my life last night. Your first official paycheck will be this Friday. $45,000, which is triple what I think you make based on average restaurant wages. If I'm wrong, tell me and I'll adjust. Brianna stared at the check. $10,000. More money than she'd ever held at once. Money that could fix their heating, pay down Tyler's loans, maybe even let her take a day off without panicking about rent. She started, but her voice caught. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This job might be dangerous. If someone is trying to kill me, they might come after anyone helping me. His expression was serious. I need you to understand that. I understand, Brianna said. And she did. But she also understood that $10,000 could change her life. That $45,000 a year could give Tyler the future he deserved. Sometimes you had to take the risk. So what now? She asked. Now I take these flowers to a lab I trust and have them tested. I also make an appointment with a doctor who can check my blood. And you? He pulled out his phone. You give me your number and I'll text you a schedule. Starting tomorrow, you'll join me for every meal. We'll call you my personal consultant. No one needs to know the real reason. She gave him her number. A moment later, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Just 2 words, thank you. Andrew. She saved the contact and looked up at him. Your people are going to think it's weird. The CEO suddenly having a food consultant. Let them think what they want. I pay them to do their jobs, not question mine. He stood, picking up his coffee. I'll be in touch by tonight with details. Until then, be careful. If someone's watching me, they might start watching you too. That thought sent a chill down her spine. But she nodded. I'll be careful. And Brianna? He paused at the table. I meant what I said. Thank you. You didn't have to get involved. Most people wouldn't have. Most people don't notice, she said softly. I just pay attention. Then I'm lucky you do. He left the coffee shop and she sat there for a long time, staring at the check in her hands. $10,000. A new job. A purpose that wasn't just surviving day to day. And somewhere out there, someone who wanted Andrew Bennett dead. She folded the check carefully and put it in her purse. Then she called Tyler. Hey sis, he answered, sounding half asleep. What's up? You okay? I'm okay, she said. Better than okay actually. I need to tell you something. She explained about last night, about the plate, about Andrew Bennett. She left out the part about the poison, just said he'd offered her a consulting job. Tyler would worry if he knew the whole truth, and he had enough on his plate with school. That's amazing, Bree, he said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. You deserve this. You've been working so hard. We've both been working hard, she corrected. This is for both of us. Still, I'm proud of you. Those words, coming from her baby brother who wasn't a baby anymore, made her throat tight. Thanks, Ty. I love you. Love you too. Now go celebrate or something. You just got hired by a billionaire. She hung up and sat in the coffee shop watching people come and go. Students with laptops. Parents with toddlers. Business people grabbing lattes to go. Normal people living normal lives. And then there was her, holding a check from a billionaire who was being poisoned, about to step into a world she didn't understand. But she'd said yes. She'd taken the offer because it was the right thing to do and because she needed the money and because Andrew Bennett had looked at her like she was the only person in the world who could help him. She finished her coffee, cold as it was, and walked outside into the morning sun. Whatever came next, she'd face it. Because kindness and hope had led her this far, and she wasn't about to stop now. Even if it meant stepping into danger. Even if it meant trusting a stranger. Because sometimes doing the right thing meant taking the risk. And Brianna Mitchell had never been afraid of hard work or hard choices. This was both. And she was ready. 3 days later, Brianna stood in a private medical lab on the top floor of a building she'd never been able to afford to enter before. Andrew sat in a chair while a doctor drew blood, his expression calm but his eyes tired. The monkshood flowers had been tested. Positive for aconitine, a powerful alkaloid toxin. Enough to make someone sick over time. Enough to kill if the doses kept increasing. How long until we have results? Andrew asked the doctor. 24 hours for the basic toxicology panel. 48 for the complete analysis. The doctor, an older woman named Dr. Reeves, labeled the vials carefully. But based on your symptoms and the timeline you've given me, I'd say Ms. Mitchell's suspicions are correct. You've been ingested something toxic over several months. Can you tell how long it would take to kill me? Andrew's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was asking about the weather. That depends on the dose and frequency. Aconitine poisoning is tricky because it mimics other conditions. Heart problems, stress, flu. By the time most people realize what's happening, it's too late. Dr. Reeves removed her gloves. You're lucky Ms. Mitchell noticed when she did. Brianna shifted uncomfortably. I just did what anyone would do. No, Dr. Reeves said, looking at her directly. Most people wouldn't have noticed. And even fewer would have acted. You saved his life. After the appointment, Andrew took Brianna to lunch. Not at Azure Heights, where the poison had been served, but at a small bistro across town. They sat outside, where Brianna could see everything being prepared in the open kitchen. You don't have to check the food here, Andrew said, amused. I picked this place specifically because everything is cooked in front of us. Habit, Brianna admitted. But she still watched carefully as their orders came out. Grilled chicken for her, salmon for him, both with simple vegetables and no garnish except lemon. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Andrew set down his fork. I want to hire you for more than just checking food, he said. I want your help with the investigation. Brianna paused mid-bite. I'm not a detective. No, but you notice things. You see details other people miss. That's exactly what I need right now. He leaned forward. I've hired a private investigator, a guy named Robert Chin. Top of his field, former FBI. But he doesn't know the people in my life like I do. He can follow leads and dig through records, but I need someone who can be there, watching, paying attention to the small things. You want me to spy on your friends and employees. I want you to observe them. There's a difference. Brianna thought about this. About the weight of suspicion, of looking at people and wondering if they were killers. Who do you suspect? Honestly? I don't know. Andrew's frustration was clear. My business partner, Todd Harrison, would inherit my shares in the company if I died. My executive assistant, Lauren Webb, has been with me for 8 years and knows everything about my schedule and habits. My head of security, Jeff Coleman, is responsible for keeping me safe. Any one of them could have access to my food. What about family? His face closed off. I don't have much family left. My parents died when I was in college. My wife had a brother, Richard Carter, but we haven't spoken since the funeral. He blamed me for her death. Why? Because I was working when she collapsed. I was in a meeting instead of at home. He said if I'd been there, I could have saved her. Andrew's voice was flat, emotionless, but Brianna could see the pain underneath. He was probably right. You can't think like that, Brianna said gently. You can't blame yourself for not knowing the future. Tell that to Richard. He's made it clear he thinks I killed her through neglect. He pushed food around his plate. But he lives across the country. He wouldn't have access to my meals here. Could he pay someone else to do it? Andrew looked at her sharply. That's actually a good point. Chin should look into that. They finished lunch and Andrew paid the bill. As they walked back to his car, he said, I'm having a dinner party tomorrow night. Small group, just my inner circle. I want you there. As your food consultant. Exactly. You'll check everything before I eat it. But you'll also watch the people there. See if anyone acts strange or nervous. See if anyone tries to do anything to my food. Brianna took a breath. This was real now. Not just theory or investigation from a distance. She'd be in a room with people, one of whom might be a killer. Okay, she said. I'll be there. Thank you. He opened the car door for her. And Brianna? I know this is a lot to ask. If you want to back out, I'll understand. She thought about Tyler, about their apartment, about the check that had already cleared in her bank account. But more than that, she thought about Andrew sitting alone in that restaurant, slowly being poisoned while he mourned his wife. She thought about him saying, please, like he'd forgotten people could be kind. I'm not backing out, she said. We started this together. We'll finish it together. He smiled, a real smile this time. You're something else, Brianna Mitchell. My grandmother used to say that. She meant it as a compliment. So do I. The drive back to her apartment took 20 minutes. Andrew's driver, a quiet man named Phil who'd been with him for a decade, navigated the traffic with ease. Brianna watched the city go by, thinking about tomorrow night, about dinner parties and suspects and trying to figure out who wanted Andrew dead. When they pulled up to her building, Andrew walked her to the door. I'll have a dress sent over, he said. Business formal. You'll need to look the part. I can wear my own clothes. I know you can. But these people will judge you based on appearances. I want them to take you seriously. He hesitated. Please. Let me do this. There was that word again. Please. Like he was asking a favor instead of paying her for a job. Fine, she said. But nothing too fancy. I need to be able to move. Understood. He started to leave, then turned back. Brianna? Be careful. Whoever is doing this, they're smart enough to have gotten away with it for months. They won't hesitate to hurt anyone who gets in their way. I'll be careful, she promised. She watched him drive away, then went inside. Tyler was home, studying at the kitchen table, surrounded by economics textbooks. How was work with the billionaire? He asked, not looking up from his notes. Interesting. I'm going to a dinner party tomorrow night. Now he looked up. A dinner party? At his house. At his estate, apparently. It's part of the job. She kicked off her shoes and collapsed on the couch. I have to check his food and make sure everything is safe. This job is so weird, Tyler said, but he was grinning. My sister, the personal food tester for a CEO. It's temporary, Brianna reminded him. Once we figure out. Once he's satisfied everything is safe, I'll go back to normal. Tyler gave her a look. Do you want to go back to normal? That question caught her off guard. Did she? The money was amazing, yes. But there was something else too. Something about the way Andrew looked at her, like she mattered. Like her skills and knowledge were valuable instead of just useful. Something about being part of something bigger than serving plates and collecting tips. I don't know, she admitted. Ask me again in a few weeks. That night, as promised, a dress arrived. Not a box, but a person. A woman named Isabel who introduced herself as a personal stylist and brought 3 options for Brianna to try on. Mr. Bennett said you needed something business formal but comfortable, Isabel said, hanging the dresses carefully. I brought a few different styles. They were beautiful. A blue dress with a fitted top and flowing skirt. A maroon pantsuit that looked professional and sharp. A green dress with 3/4 sleeves and a modest neckline. The blue one, Tyler said from the doorway. That color looks good on you. The maroon is more practical, Brianna countered. Mr. Bennett specifically requested blue or green, Isabel said diplomatically. He said those are your best colors. That made Brianna pause. When had Andrew noticed what colors she looked good in? She tried on the blue dress. It fit perfectly, hugging her curves without being too tight, falling just below her knees. Professional but pretty. This is the one, Isabel said with satisfaction. You look wonderful. After Isabel left, Brianna stood in front of her bedroom mirror, looking at herself in a dress that probably cost more than a month's rent. She looked different. Not like a waitress or a grocery store clerk. Like someone who belonged at a billionaire's dinner party. "You clean up nice," Tyler said from the doorway. "It's just a dress." "It's not just a dress. It's you getting a chance to be more than what we've had to be since Mom and Dad died." He came over and hugged her. "You deserve this, Bree. Good things. Nice clothes. A job that pays well and respects you." She hugged him back, blinking away tears. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just haven't been paying attention." She laughed and the tension in her chest eased. Tomorrow night would be difficult. But tonight she had Tyler and a blue dress, and the knowledge that she was doing something important. Tomorrow she'd walk into Andrew Bennett's world and try to figure out who wanted him dead. Tonight she'd enjoy this moment of peace while it lasted. Because she had a feeling that once that dinner party began, nothing would be peaceful again for a very long time. Andrew's estate sat on 5 acres outside the city, behind gates that required a code and a security check. The house itself was modern, all glass and clean lines, with views of the gardens and a pool that glowed blue in the evening light. Brianna arrived at 6, an hour before the dinner party began. The same driver, Phil, had picked her up, and she'd spent the drive trying not to wrinkle her blue dress or let her nerves show. "You'll do great," Phil said as he opened her door. "Mr. Bennett knows what he's doing. He wouldn't have brought you here if he didn't trust you." "Thanks, Phil." Andrew met her at the front door, wearing a dark suit that made him look every inch the successful CEO. But his eyes were warm when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "It's the dress. Your stylist has good taste." "It's not the dress." He gestured inside. "Come on. I want to show you the kitchen before everyone arrives." The kitchen was enormous, all stainless steel and marble countertops. A catering staff was already at work, preparing food under the supervision of a head chef. "This is Marie," Andrew said, introducing Brianna to a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and confident hands. "She's been my personal chef for 3 years. If there's anyone I trust with food, it's her." Mr. Bennett explained the situation, Marie said, shaking Brianna's hand. "You'll have full access to observe everything. I want you to feel confident that nothing leaves this kitchen that isn't safe." "Thank you," Brianna said, relieved. She'd been worried about stepping on toes, but Marie seemed to understand the seriousness of what was happening. For the next hour, Brianna watched the meal prep. Appetizers, salads, a main course of roasted duck with vegetables and a chocolate dessert. Everything was fresh, prepared in front of her, nothing coming from outside sources. At 7 o'clock, the guests began arriving. Todd Harrison came first. He was in his 40s, tall and confident, with graying hair and a firm handshake. "So you're the consultant Andrew's been talking about," he said, studying Brianna with sharp eyes. "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too, Mr. Harrison. Call me Todd. We're all friends here." Lauren Webb arrived next. She was younger than Brianna expected, maybe 30, with blonde hair pulled back in a neat bun and a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Brianna Mitchell," she said like she was checking off a list. "Andrew mentioned you'd be joining us. I hope that's all right." Of course. Andrew's decisions are always sound. But there was something in her voice, a hint of coldness that made Brianna's instincts prickle. Jeff Coleman, the head of security, was last. He was built like a wall, with military posture and eyes that took in every detail of the room. "Ma'am," he said, nodding to Brianna. Then to Andrew, "Perimeter is secure. No issues." They gathered in the dining room, a space with a long table and windows overlooking the gardens. Andrew sat at the head with Todd on his right and Lauren on his left. Jeff sat next to Todd and Brianna sat next to Lauren, positioned where she could see everyone. The first course arrived. Brianna had watched it prepared, had seen every ingredient go onto the plates. But she still examined Andrew's serving carefully before giving him a subtle nod. "So, Brianna," Todd said, cutting into his appetizer. "Andrew says you're a food consultant. What exactly does that mean?" "I help ensure quality and safety," Brianna said, using the script she and Andrew had practiced. "I specialize in identifying issues with ingredients and preparation." "Fascinating. What got you into that line of work?" "My grandmother. She taught me about plants and herbs, about what makes food safe and healthy." "And Andrew hired you because?" "Because I value my health," Andrew cut in smoothly. "And Brianna has an eye for detail that most people don't." Todd nodded, but Brianna could see him filing that information away, analyzing it. The conversation moved on. They talked about the company, about recent acquisitions and upcoming projects. Brianna stayed quiet, mostly listening, watching. Lauren barely touched her food. She kept glancing at Andrew, her expression unreadable. Todd ate heartily, talking about expansion into Asian markets and the potential for new partnerships. Jeff said little, but his eyes never stopped moving, assessing threats even in this supposedly safe space. When the main course arrived, Brianna excused herself to check the kitchen. Marie had everything under control, but Brianna wanted to see Andrew's plate being prepared. She was standing by the counter when she heard footsteps behind her. "Checking up on us?" Lauren's voice was cool. Brianna turned. "Just doing my job." "Your job is, what exactly?" "To make Andrew paranoid about his own food." Lauren crossed her arms. "He's been through a lot. His wife's death nearly destroyed him. The last thing he needs is someone making him suspicious of the people trying to help him." "I'm not making him suspicious. I'm making sure he stays healthy." "He was healthy before you showed up." That was interesting. Because Andrew very much had not been healthy before Brianna showed up. He'd been slowly dying. "I think Andrew can decide what he needs," Brianna said carefully. "Can he?" "Because from where I'm standing, he's letting a stranger into his life, into his home, based on one incident at a restaurant. That doesn't sound like the Andrew I know." There was something under Lauren's words. Jealousy, maybe. Or fear that she was losing her position as Andrew's most trusted assistant. "I'm not trying to replace anyone," Brianna said. "I'm just doing a job. Just make sure you remember that." Lauren turned and walked back to the dining room. Brianna waited a moment, then followed with Andrew's plate. She set it in front of him, their eyes meeting briefly. He could read the tension in her face, she knew. Could tell something had happened. Dinner continued. Dessert was served. Coffee was offered. Through it all, Brianna watched and listened. At 9:30 the guests began to leave. Todd shook Andrew's hand and clapped him on the shoulder. "Good to see you looking better. Whatever this new health kick is doing, keep it up." Lauren lingered, organizing papers and checking schedules. "I'll have those reports ready by Monday," she said. "And Andrew? Please consider what I said about the board meeting. They're getting restless." After everyone left, Andrew and Brianna stood in the living room, the house suddenly quiet. "That was exhausting," Andrew said, loosening his tie. "What did Lauren mean about the board being restless?" "They think I've been distracted. Unfocused. They're not wrong." He sat down on the couch. "But they don't know why. And I can't tell them someone's been poisoning me without proof." Brianna sat across from him. "I don't trust Lauren. Neither do I at the moment. But that doesn't mean she's the one doing this." "She's in love with you." Andrew looked up sharply. "What?" "The way she looks at you. The way she talks about you. She's in love with you and she's jealous of me being here." He ran a hand through his hair. "Lauren has been my assistant for 8 years. She's efficient, professional. I never thought. Sometimes people hide how they feel. Especially if they think it could cost them their job. If she's in love with me, why would she poison me? I don't know. Maybe she's not the one doing it. Maybe she's just protective and sees me as a threat." Brianna paused. "Or maybe she thinks if you die, she'll inherit something. Or maybe someone's using her feelings to manipulate her." Andrew looked tired suddenly. Very tired. "This is my life now. Suspecting everyone. Wondering which of my friends wants me dead." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You're the only one I can trust right now. That actually means something." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Andrew said, "I want to show you something." He led her to his office, a room lined with books and photos. On the desk was a picture of a woman with dark hair and a bright smile. "My wife, Jennifer," Andrew said softly. "She died 3 years ago. Heart failure, sudden and unexpected. She was only 34. Brianna studied the photo. Jennifer looked happy, her arm around Andrew's waist, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you. I thought I'd moved past it, that I was healing. But then this poisoning started and I realized someone might be using her death against me. Her brother Richard blamed me. Maybe he's finally decided to act on that anger." "Did Richard know about Azure Heights? About your routine there?" "He could have found out. It's not exactly a secret where I eat." Andrew set the photo down carefully. Chin is looking into him. Into all of them. But it takes time. "We'll figure it out," Brianna said with more confidence than she felt. "Whoever is doing this, they made a mistake when they underestimated you." Andrew smiled. "They made a mistake when you noticed that plate. If you hadn't been there that night. But I was there. And I'm here now." He looked at her, really looked at her, and something shifted in the air between them. Not romantic, not yet, but something warm and important. Trust maybe. Or the beginning of friendship. I'm glad you're here, he said quietly. So am I. Phil drove her home at 11. The apartment was dark, Tyler already asleep. Brianna changed out of the blue dress and sat on her bed, thinking about the evening. Lauren's jealousy. Todd's questions. Jeff's watchful eyes. And Andrew, tired and alone, surrounded by people he couldn't trust. She pulled out her phone and texted him. Got home safe. See you tomorrow. A minute later he replied. Thank you for tonight. You were perfect. Oh. She smiled and set her phone aside. Tomorrow they'd start narrowing down suspects. Tomorrow they'd dig deeper into Richard Carter and Lauren Webb and Todd Harrison. Tomorrow the investigation would really begin. But tonight she'd done her job. She'd watched and listened and kept Andrew safe. And somehow in the process she'd started to care about more than just the paycheck. She cared about him. About his safety, his happiness, his life. That thought should have scared her. Getting emotionally involved with a client was dangerous, especially when that client was a billionaire being poisoned by someone in his inner circle. But Brianna had never been good at keeping her distance when someone needed her. And Andrew Bennett definitely needed her. So she'd stay. She'd watch his back and check his food and help him find the person trying to kill him. And maybe, just maybe, she'd help him learn to trust again. Because everyone deserved that. Even billionaires. Even men who'd lost their wives and forgotten how to ask for help. Everyone deserved kindness and hope and the chance to believe that good people still existed in the world. Brianna was determined to prove that they did. 2 weeks passed in a blur of dinners, meetings, and investigation. Brianna became a fixture in Andrew's life, accompanying him to business lunches and evening events, always watching, always checking his food. The staff at Bennett Technologies grew used to seeing her, though some still whispered about the young woman who'd appeared out of nowhere and gained the CEO's trust. On a Tuesday afternoon, Andrew invited Brianna to his office. When she arrived, he was standing by the window staring out at the city. Chin found something, he said without turning around. Brianna's pulse quickened. What? Richard Carter, my late wife's brother, made several large deposits into his bank account over the past year. 50,000 here, 20,000 there. We can't trace where the money came from. You think someone paid him to poison you? Or he's paying someone else to do it? Andrew finally turned to face her. But here's the thing. Richard lives in California. He hasn't been to this city in 3 years, not since Jennifer's funeral. So if he's involved, he's working with someone local. Someone like Lauren or Todd or Jeff. Exactly. Andrew sat down heavily. Chin is digging deeper, but we don't have enough to confront anyone yet. We need more proof. Brianna took a seat across from him. Over the past 2 weeks, they'd fallen into an easy rhythm. Not quite friendship, but something close. They talked about more than just the investigation now. She told him about raising Tyler, about her parents' death in a car accident, about the years of struggle to keep them both afloat. He told her about building his company from nothing, about meeting Jennifer in college, about the loneliness that came with success. Can I ask you something personal? Brianna said now. You've saved my life. I think you've earned the right to ask me anything. What was Jennifer like? Andrew's expression softened. She was light. That's the best way I can describe her. She made everything brighter just by being there. She believed in me when no one else did, when I was just a college kid with an idea that everyone said would fail. You must miss her. Every day. He leaned back in his chair. But I think I've been missing her wrong. I've been so focused on work, on success, on proving that her faith in me wasn't misplaced, that I forgot to actually live. I forgot that she would have wanted me to be happy. You're allowed to be happy, Brianna said gently. That's not betraying her memory. You sound like my therapist. You have a therapist? I stopped going after a year. Thought I was fine. He smiled wryly. Turns out I wasn't. None of us are fine all the time. We just pretend better than others. Andrew studied her face. You're wise for your age, you know that? I'm 27, not 12. Still. You've got perspective that most people don't gain until much later. He paused. Can I ask you something personal now? Fair is fair. Why did you say yes? To this job, to helping me? You could have walked away after that first night. Brianna considered the question. She could give him the easy answer, the one about money and security. But they'd gone past easy answers. Because you said please, she said finally. And because when you looked at me you saw a person, not just a waitress. You asked for help instead of demanding it. That's rare. It shouldn't be. But it is. And also, She hesitated. Also because I know what it's like to be alone. After my parents died, Tyler and I were alone for a long time. People would ask if we needed help, but they never really meant it. They just wanted to feel good about asking. But you genuinely needed help and you were honest about it. That mattered to me. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Outside, the city hummed with life, millions of people going about their days, unaware of the drama playing out in this office. Tell me about Tyler, Andrew said. You've mentioned him, but I don't really know anything about him. So Brianna told him. About Tyler's dreams of becoming an engineer, about his grades and his dedication and his terrible sense of humor. About how he'd grown from a grieving teenager into a responsible young man who still left dishes in the sink but remembered to call her when he'd be late. He sounds like a good kid, Andrew said. He's the best. I'm so proud of him. You raised him right. I did my best. Some days that wasn't much, but it was enough. Andrew's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. Speaking of family, Tyler's tuition is due next week, right? Brianna blinked. Did you look into my finances? Chin did. Part of his background check when I hired you. I needed to make sure you weren't connected to anyone suspicious. He looked apologetic. I hope you're not offended. She should have been. Should have been angry about the invasion of privacy. But understanding why he'd done it, given the circumstances, she couldn't quite muster the outrage. It's fine. And yes, Tyler's tuition is due. I've been saving. How much? $5,000 for the semester. Andrew typed something on his phone. A moment later, Brianna's phone buzzed. What did you just do? She asked. Paid Tyler's tuition for the rest of his college career. Brianna's heart stopped. What? His tuition, room and board, books, everything. It's taken care of. Andrew, that's at least $50,000. I can't accept that. Yes, you can. Consider it part of your payment for saving my life. You're already paying me $45,000 a year. That's more than enough. Brianna. He leaned forward, his expression serious. You're risking your safety to help me. The least I can do is make sure your brother gets his education without you worrying about it. Please, let me do this. There was that word again. Please. Not demanding, asking. And Brianna realized he needed this. Needed to do something good, something that helped someone, in the middle of all this darkness and suspicion. Okay, she said softly. Thank you. Truly. This means everything to us. You're welcome. He smiled. Now about tonight. I have a charity gala at the museum. Very public, very visible. I want you there. As your food consultant? As my guest. I think it's time people start seeing you as more than just the person who checks my plates. If someone is watching, trying to figure out how to get to me, I want them confused about your role. You want to use me as a distraction. I want them to think you matter to me personally. That way they won't suspect you're actually investigating them. It made sense. But it also meant stepping further into Andrew's world, being seen on his arm at a high-profile event. People would talk. They'd assume things. What will people think? She asked. Does it matter? It might matter to you. If people think we're involved. Andrew looked at her steadily. Would that be so terrible? The question hung in the air between them. Brianna's breath caught because she didn't know how to answer that. 2 weeks ago, Andrew Bennett was just a customer. Now he was someone who made her laugh, who listened when she talked, who cared about Tyler's education and her grandmother's teachings. Now he was someone she thought about when she wasn't with him. Someone she worried about beyond just the paycheck. I don't know, she said honestly. Well, we don't have to figure that out tonight. Tonight, you're just my guest at a gala. Or something nice. The same stylist will bring options. Andrew? Yes. Thank you. For Tyler's tuition. For everything. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Because good people deserve good things, Brianna. And you're one of the best people I know. After she left his office, Brianna sat in her car for a long time processing. $50,000. Tyler's entire education paid for. No more worrying about loans or interest or him having to work 3 jobs like she had. She called Tyler immediately. Hey sis, he answered. What's up? Your tuition is paid. Silence. Then, what? Your tuition for the rest of college. Room and board, books, everything. It's paid. Bree, how, did you win the lottery or something? Andrew Bennett paid it. He said it was part of my compensation. Bree, that's incredible. I don't know what to say. Say you'll study hard and make the most of it. I will. I promise. But sis? This guy, he seems really good to you. Don't let him be just your boss, okay? If he's good to you, be good to him back. It's not like that. Maybe it should be. You deserve to be happy too, you know? After they hung up, Brianna drove home slowly, thinking about Andrew's question. Would it be so terrible if people thought they were involved? The truth was, it wouldn't be terrible at all. But it would be complicated. He was a billionaire being poisoned by someone in his inner circle. She was a waitress turned consultant who was in way over her head. They came from different worlds. When this was over, when they caught whoever was behind the poisoning, she'd go back to her life and he'd go back to his. But Tyler's words echoed in her mind. You deserve to be happy too. When had she stopped believing that? When had she started thinking that happiness was something for other people, not for girls who raised their brothers and worked double shifts and barely had time to breathe? That night, Isabel arrived with 3 dresses for the gala. This time, Brianna chose the maroon one, elegant and confident. The kind of dress a woman wore when she wanted to be taken seriously. The kind of dress someone wore when they were stepping into a new version of themselves. As she looked in the mirror, Brianna barely recognized herself. Not because of the dress or the professional styling, but because of the expression on her face. Hope. That's what she saw. Hope that maybe, just maybe, good things could happen to good people. That kindness could be rewarded instead of punished. That a billionaire and a waitress could build something real, something that mattered, in the middle of chaos and danger. Tomorrow night, she'd go to a gala on Andrew Bennett's arm. She'd smile and make conversation and watch for threats. But she'd also allow herself to enjoy it. To be present in the moment. To believe that this new chapter of her life was real and that she deserved to be there. Because she did. She'd earned this through courage and kindness and refusing to look away when someone needed help. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something beautiful. Even if neither of them was ready to admit it yet. The museum gala was everything Brianna had expected and nothing she was prepared for. Hundreds of people in elegant clothes, champagne flowing like water, art that cost more than she'd make in a lifetime. She stayed close to Andrew, her maroon dress drawing approving glances from people who probably assumed she was someone important. Andrew introduced her to everyone simply as Brianna Mitchell, a close friend. Not his food consultant. Not his employee. A friend. The distinction felt important, though she wasn't sure why. They were talking to a group of investors when Chin, the private investigator, appeared at Andrew's elbow. We need to talk, he said quietly. Privately. They excused themselves and found a quiet corner near the sculpture gallery. I've been tracking Richard Carter's movements, Chin said, keeping his voice low. 3 months ago he made 2 trips to this city. Short visits, only a day or 2 each time. He stayed at budget hotels and paid cash. Who did he meet with? Andrew asked. I'm still working on that. But here's what's interesting. Both trips coincided with dates when you reported feeling particularly ill after eating at Azure Heights. Brianna's stomach tightened. So Richard is involved. It looks that way. But he's not working alone. He couldn't have access to Andrew's food without help from someone here. Chin pulled out his phone and showed them photos. I've been following Lauren Webb for the past week. 2 days ago, she met with someone at a coffee shop downtown. They talked for 20 minutes and he gave her an envelope. The photo showed Lauren sitting across from a man in his 30s with sharp features and cold eyes. Who is he? Andrew asked. I don't know yet. But I'm running facial recognition and checking her phone records. We should have answers soon. We need to set a trap, Brianna said suddenly. Both men looked at her. If Lauren is involved and if she's working with Richard, we need to give them an opportunity to try again. But this time we control everything. You want to use me as bait, Andrew said. I want to catch them in the act. It's the only way to get proof that will hold up. Chin nodded slowly. It's risky, but she's right. We announce a private dinner at your estate. Small group, only your most trusted people. We make it known that you'll be eating food prepared by your chef, Marie. If someone tries to poison you there, we'll know it's an inside job. And if they succeed? Andrew asked. They won't, Brianna said firmly. Because I'll be there checking everything. We'll have security watching. And this time we'll know what to look for. Andrew was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, okay, let's do it. But Brianna, if this gets dangerous, I want you to leave. I won't risk your safety. We're in this together, she reminded him. I'm not leaving. The rest of the gala passed in a blur. Brianna's mind was already planning the dinner, thinking through every detail, every possible way someone could get to Andrew's food. When Andrew drove her home that night, neither of them spoke much. The weight of what they were about to do hung between them. Are you sure about this? Andrew asked as they pulled up to her building. Are you? I'm sure I want this to end. I'm sure I want to know who's trying to kill me so I can stop looking over my shoulder. He turned to face her. But I'm not sure I'm willing to risk you getting hurt. I can take care of myself. I know you can. But that doesn't mean I don't worry. There was something in his voice, something warm and concerned that made Brianna's heart beat faster. I'll be careful, she promised. We both will. He reached over and took her hand. His palm was warm against hers, solid and real. Thank you. For everything. Not just the investigation but for reminding me that there are still good people in the world. You're one of them, Brianna said softly. Don't forget that. He smiled, and for a moment, sitting in the car in front of her apartment building, they were just two people who'd found each other in the middle of chaos. Two people who cared about each other more than either was ready to admit. Then the moment passed and Brianna got out of the car. She watched him drive away, her hands still warm from his touch. Tyler was waiting up when she got inside. How was the gala? He asked. Beautiful. Terrifying. We're setting a trap to catch the person poisoning Andrew. Tyler's eyes widened. You're doing what? She explained the plan, leaving out the most dangerous parts. Tyler listened, his expression growing more concerned. Bree, this sounds really dangerous. Maybe you should let the police handle it. We don't have enough evidence for the police yet. That's why we need to catch them in the act. But what if something goes wrong? What if they figure out you're on to them? Then Andrew and I will deal with it. Together. Tyler shook his head. You really care about him, don't you? This stopped being just a job weeks ago. Brianna couldn't deny it. He's a good person, Ty. Someone hurt him, someone he trusted. I want to help make that right. And after you catch them? Then what? That was the question she'd been avoiding. What happened after? Would Andrew still need her? Would she go back to waitressing, back to her old life? Did she even want to? I don't know, she admitted. But first we have to get through this dinner. The next few days were a flurry of planning. Andrew sent invitations for a private dinner at his estate, extending them to Todd, Lauren, and Jeff. All three accepted. Marie, the chef, was briefed on the situation. She agreed to prepare everything under Brianna's supervision, with Chin stationed in the kitchen to film everything. If someone tampers with the food, we'll have it on camera, Chin explained. And if they try to add something during the meal, we'll have eyes everywhere. Andrew hired additional security people Chin vouched for to watch the house. They'd be hidden but ready to move if needed. This is it, the moment where everything changes. Will Brianna and Andrew finally catch the person who's been poisoning him? Will they make it out of this dinner alive? What do you think is going to happen? Share your predictions in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss how this intense dinner party unfolds. Your support means everything as we get closer to the truth. The night of the dinner arrived. Brianna came early, dressed in a professional green dress that would let her move easily if needed. She watched Marie prepare each dish, photographing every step, checking every ingredient. You're thorough, Marie commented. That's good. It means you care. I do, Brianna said. More than I probably should. There's no such thing as caring too much. Not when someone's life is at stake. At 7 o'clock, the guests arrived. Todd, cheerful and loud, talking about a recent golf game. Lauren, quiet and watchful, her eyes tracking Andrew's every move. Jeff, professional as always, noting the extra security with a raised eyebrow. They gathered in the dining room. Brianna sat between Andrew and Jeff, positioned where she could see Lauren across the table. The first course was served. Brianna had watched it prepared, had checked Andrew's plate personally. Everything was clean. They ate and talked. Business, politics, the weather. Normal dinner conversation. But Brianna's senses were on high alert, watching for any wrong move. The second course came out. Still nothing suspicious. Then Lauren excused herself to use the restroom. Brianna's eyes met Andrew's across the table. They discussed this. If anyone left, someone would follow. Chen's voice came through the earpiece Andrew was wearing, so quiet only he could hear. She's in the kitchen. Talking to one of the servers. Andrew's expression didn't change, but Brianna saw his jaw tighten. Brianna, could you help me with something in my study? Andrew said calmly. There's a document I need you to look at. Of course. They left the dining room together. In the hallway, Andrew turned to her. Chin says Lauren just passed something to a server. He's following the server now to see where it goes. The wine, Brianna said suddenly. She's going to put it in your wine. They hurried back to the dining room, arriving just as the server was pouring wine into glasses. Andrew's glass was already full. Actually, Andrew said smoothly. I'd prefer water tonight. Could you take this away? The server hesitated just for a second. Then he nodded and reached for the glass. Don't, Jeff said sharply, standing up. Don't touch that glass. The room went silent. Todd looked confused. Lauren had gone pale. Jeff, what are you doing? Todd asked. Stopping a murder, Jeff said. He pulled out his phone and pressed a button. Seconds later, Chin and 2 other security personnel entered the dining room. Lauren Webb, Chin said. We have you on camera accepting a substance from Richard Carter and passing it to this server with instructions to put it in Mr. Bennett's wine. I'm afraid you're under arrest for attempted murder. Lauren stood up, her chair scraping loudly. No, you don't understand. He deserved it. He killed Jennifer. Andrew's face went white. What? You killed her. Lauren's voice was shaking. You were never there. You worked all the time, you ignored her, you made her so stressed and unhappy that her heart gave out. Richard was right. You deserved to suffer the way she suffered. Lauren, I loved my wife, Andrew said quietly. Her death destroyed me. If you loved her, you would have been there. You would have seen the signs. You would have saved her. Tears were running down Lauren's face now. But you didn't. So Richard and I decided to make you pay. Slowly, like she suffered. Watching you get weaker and weaker just like she did. I've been in love with you for years, Lauren continued, her voice breaking. Years of watching you barely notice I exist. When Jennifer died, I thought maybe finally you'd see me. But you didn't. You just worked more, hurt more. So when Richard contacted me, when he said he wanted justice for his sister, I listened. And the money? Andrew asked. The deposits in Richard's account? Payment for the poison. I've been embezzling from the company to pay him. Small amounts spread out over time. Enough to get what we needed without raising suspicion. Jeff moved forward, but Chin stopped him. Let her talk. I'm sorry, Lauren said, but she didn't sound sorry. She sounded broken. I'm sorry I fell in love with you. I'm sorry I believed Richard when he said this was justice. I'm sorry I let my feelings make me into a killer. The server meanwhile had tried to slip out. But security blocked the door. He was arrested along with Lauren, both of them led away in handcuffs. Todd sat frozen, his dinner forgotten. I can't believe. Lauren? All this time? Yeah, Andrew said tiredly. All this time. After the police left with Lauren and the server, after statements were given and evidence was collected, Andrew and Brianna stood alone in his office. It's over, Andrew said, staring out the window. Finally over. Are you okay? Brianna asked. He turned to face her and she saw tears in his eyes. Lauren blamed me for Jennifer's death. And maybe she was right. Maybe if I'd been there more, if I'd paid attention. Stop. Brianna crossed the room and took his hands. You didn't kill your wife. A heart condition killed your wife. You loved her and she knew that. How can you be sure? Because I've seen the way you talk about her. The way your face lights up when you remember her. That's real love, Andrew. The kind that doesn't fade even after death. He pulled her into a hug and she held him while he cried. For Jennifer, for Lauren's betrayal, for the months of fear and sickness and suspicion. When he finally pulled back, he said, thank you. For everything. For saving my life, for believing in me, for standing by me through all of this. That's what friends do, Brianna said. Friends? Andrew repeated, and something in his voice made her heart skip. Is that all we are? The question hung between them, heavy with possibility. I don't know, Brianna admitted. What do you want us to be? I want. He stopped, searching for words. I want to find out. After everything settles, after the investigation is complete and the trials are over. I want to take you to dinner, not as your boss or your client, but as someone who cares about you. Someone who wants to know what might happen between us. Brianna's breath caught. Okay, she said softly. I'd like that. They stood there in his office, hands still clasped, both of them smiling despite the chaos of the evening. Because the nightmare was over. The threat was gone. And ahead of them lay the possibility of something new, something good. Something built on trust and kindness and the understanding that they'd face darkness together and come out stronger. The future was uncertain. But for the first time in months, it was also bright with hope. Earlier that evening, before Lauren's confession, before everything unraveled, the dinner had started normally. Brianna had stood in the kitchen with Marie, watching every ingredient, every preparation, every plate. You seem nervous, Marie observed as she plated the first course. I have a feeling something is going to happen tonight, Brianna admitted. Trust your instincts. They've been right so far. The appetizers were perfect. Seared scallops with a citrus reduction, microgreens on the side. Brianna examined each plate carefully before they left the kitchen. Todd's, Lauren's, Jeff's, Andrew's. All identical. All safe. In the dining room, the conversation flowed easily at first. Todd was entertaining, telling stories about a recent business trip to Japan. Jeff listened quietly, occasionally contributing dry observations that made everyone laugh. Lauren seemed distracted, checking her phone repeatedly until Andrew asked her to put it away. "Sorry," she said, sliding the phone into her purse. "Just some work emails I need to handle." "Work can wait," Andrew said. "Tonight is about enjoying good food and good company." But Brianna noticed Lauren's hand shaking slightly as she reached for her water glass. Noticed the way she kept glancing toward the kitchen. When the second course arrived, soup with fresh herbs and crusty bread, Brianna excused herself to use the restroom. Instead, she went to the security room where Chen was monitoring cameras. "Anything?" she asked. "Not yet. But Lauren keeps texting someone. We're tracking it now." "Who is she texting?" "The server. The one who's supposed to be handling the wine service tonight." Chen pulled up messages on his screen. "Look at this. Is everything ready? Do it during the main course. Make sure it's his glass, not anyone else's." Brianna's pulse raced. "We need to watch that server." "Already on it. I've got a camera pointed at the wine station. If he adds anything to a glass, we'll see it." Back in the dining room, Brianna slipped into her seat just as the soup was being cleared. Andrew looked at her questioningly and she gave a subtle nod. Everything was progressing as planned. The main course was announced. Roasted duck with cherry sauce, roasted vegetables, wild rice. It looked beautiful, smelled amazing. Marie had outdone herself. "This looks incredible," Todd said, cutting into his duck. "Marie is a treasure, Andrew. You're lucky to have her." "I know it," Andrew agreed. But Brianna was watching Lauren. The woman had barely touched her soup and wasn't reaching for her fork now either. She was watching the door, waiting. Then it happened. Lauren stood abruptly. "Excuse me, I need to powder my nose." She left the dining room, walking quickly. Brianna counted to 10, then said, "I should check on her. Make sure she's okay." She followed Lauren's path toward the restrooms but stopped when she heard voices in the kitchen. Lauren's voice, sharp and urgent. "Do it now. The wine. His glass, the one on the right side of his plate. Put it in before we sit back down." Brianna couldn't see the server's face, but she heard him say, "Are you sure about this? If we get caught." "We won't get caught," Richard promised. "The dose is small enough that it'll look like his heart gave out naturally. Just like Jennifer." Brianna's blood ran cold. They were going to make it look like Andrew died the same way his wife did. She texted Chin immediately. "They're doing it now. The wine. Get ready." Then she walked calmly back to the dining room and sat down. A minute later, Lauren returned, looking pale but composed. She took her seat and reached for her water. The server entered with wine. He moved around the table, pouring carefully. When he reached Andrew, his hand moved slightly differently. A pause, a slight adjustment of the bottle. But before the wine could pour, Andrew spoke. "Actually, I'd prefer water tonight." The rest played out exactly as planned. Jeff's intervention, Chen's arrival, Lauren's breakdown and confession. But what Brianna remembered most wasn't the dramatic arrest or Lauren's tears. It was the moment when she'd heard Lauren say, "Just like Jennifer." The casual cruelty of it, the cold calculation. Lauren had loved Andrew, or thought she did. But love didn't look like this. Love didn't involve slow poison and watching someone suffer. Love didn't mean destroying someone because they didn't love you back. Real love, Brianna thought, looked like Andrew trusting her when he barely knew her. Like him paying Tyler's tuition without being asked. Like him worrying about her safety even when his own life was at risk. Real love was built on kindness and respect and the choice to stand beside someone even when things got hard. After everyone left, after the police took their statements and the house finally quieted, Brianna found Andrew still in his office, staring at the photo of Jennifer. "Do you think she would have forgiven me?" he asked. "For not being there when she died?" "I think she never blamed you in the first place," Brianna said. "Lauren's hate doesn't reflect Jennifer's feelings. Richard's anger doesn't define your marriage." "How do you know?" "Because people who truly love each other don't keep score. They don't blame. They understand that life is complicated and that being present isn't just about physical proximity." She moved to stand beside him, looking at the photo. "Jennifer looks happy in this picture. That's real. Whatever she felt for you was real." Andrew nodded slowly. "Thank you. For everything tonight. For having the courage to follow Lauren, for texting Chin, for staying calm when everything was falling apart. That's what partners do. Partners? Andrew repeated and smiled. I like that. They stood together in the quiet office, the weight of the past few months finally lifting. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more investigations as Richard Carter was tracked down in California. There would be trials and media attention and complicated legal proceedings. But tonight they were safe. The threat was gone. And they had each other. Come on, Brianna said. Let's get you something to eat. Real food, not poisoned. Marie saved some dessert. In the kitchen they found chocolate cake and fresh strawberries. They sat at the counter, the house quiet around them, and ate in comfortable silence. This is nice, Andrew said. Normal. I'd forgotten what normal felt like. Normal is overrated, Brianna said with a smile. But safe is pretty good. Safe is very good. He set down his fork and looked at her seriously. I meant what I said earlier. About wanting to take you to dinner. About wanting to see where this goes. I meant what I said too. I'd like that. But you should know I'm a mess. I'm still grieving Jennifer. I have trust issues now. I'm probably going to need therapy for years. And you should know I'm stubborn. I work too much. I worry about Tyler constantly even though he's an adult now. And I have no idea how to date a billionaire. Then it's a good thing I have no idea how to date anyone at all, Andrew said. We'll figure it out together. Together, Brianna echoed. I like the sound of that. They finished their cake and cleaned up the kitchen. Outside, the night was quiet, stars visible beyond the city lights. Inside, two people who'd been through hell together were finally allowing themselves to breathe, to hope, to believe that maybe, just maybe, something beautiful could grow from the ashes of all that fear and darkness. The dinner party was over. The trap had worked. The villain was caught. And now, finally, they could start to heal. Together. The next morning, Brianna woke to her phone ringing. Andrew's name on the screen. Good morning, she answered. Morning. Chin just called. They arrested Richard Carter in California an hour ago. Brianna sat up, suddenly alert. That was fast. He tried to run when he heard about Lauren's arrest. Made it to the airport before they caught him. Andrew sounded tired but relieved. He's being extradited here to face charges. It's really over now, Brianna. All of it. How are you doing? Honestly? I'm exhausted. And angry. And sad. Lauren worked for me for 8 years. I trusted her with everything. And Richard is family or was. To find out they were working together to kill me? His voice trailed off. You want company? Brianna asked. Actually, yes. If you're free. I'll be there in an hour. She showered and dressed quickly, then left Tyler a note explaining where she'd gone. When she arrived at Andrew's estate, Phil met her at the door with a tired smile. He's in the garden, Phil said. Been out there since dawn. Brianna found Andrew sitting on a bench near the roses, still in his pajamas and a robe. He looked younger somehow, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. Hey, she said softly, sitting beside him. Hey. He didn't look at her, just kept staring at the flowers. Jennifer loved roses. She said they were proof that beautiful things could exist even with thorns. She was right. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed with Lauren. The way she always volunteered to handle my schedule, my meals, my personal appointments. I thought she was just efficient. I didn't realize she was obsessed. You couldn't have known. She hid it well. But shouldn't I have seen something? Some indication that the person managing my life was planning to end it? Brianna took his hand. Andrew, you're not responsible for other people's mental health or their choices. Lauren made a decision to hurt you. That's on her, not you. Chin pulled her phone records. She and Richard had been talking for over a year. Planning this. She embezzled almost $200,000 from the company to pay for the poison and to pay Richard for his consulting. She was meticulous, careful. If you hadn't noticed that plate? But I did notice. And you're alive. That's what matters. They sat in silence for a while, watching the roses sway in the morning breeze. Tell me about Richard, Brianna said finally. What was he like before Jennifer died? Andrew considered. He was protective of her. Maybe too protective. When she and I started dating in college, he was against it. Said I was too focused on my business ideas, that I'd hurt her. But Jennifer chose me anyway, and eventually Richard came around. Or I thought he did. Did you see him much? After the wedding? Not really. He moved to California for a job in finance. We'd see him at holidays, at family events. He and I weren't close, but we were civil. Then Jennifer died. Andrew's voice cracked. At the funeral he was so angry. He screamed at me in front of everyone, said I'd killed her with stress and neglect. Security had to remove him. That must have been horrible. It was. But I thought he was just grieving, saying things he didn't mean. I never imagined he'd actually try to get revenge. Have the police said what's going to happen to them? Lauren and Richard. Chin says they're both looking at attempted murder charges. Lauren will probably get a lighter sentence if she cooperates fully. Richard, though, he orchestrated everything. He provided the poison, the plan. He might spend the rest of his life in prison. Do you feel guilty about that? Andrew looked at her in surprise. Should I? No. I'm just wondering if you do. He thought for a moment. I feel sad. Sad that grief and anger twisted him into someone who could do this. Sad that Jennifer's death caused so much pain that it nearly caused mine too. But guilty? No. He made his choices. I'm just glad I survived them. Phil appeared on the path. Mr. Bennett, Chin is here. He says it's important. They went inside to find Chin in Andrew's office, looking grim. We interviewed Richard, Chin said without preamble. He confessed to everything. But there's something you need to know. He didn't start planning this on his own. What do you mean? Andrew asked. Jennifer's medical records. Richard requested copies of them 2 years ago, right after her death. He was convinced there was something suspicious about how she died. He thought maybe you'd had a hand in it. Andrew went pale. That's insane. I loved Jennifer. I know. But Richard was so convinced that he hired his own private investigator. That investigator found nothing suspicious, told Richard it was a tragic but natural death. But Richard wouldn't accept it. Chin pulled out a folder. Then about 18 months ago he met Lauren at Jennifer's grave. They struck up a conversation. Lauren admitted she'd always loved you. Richard saw an opportunity. He manipulated her, Brianna said. Exactly. He fed her theories about you being responsible for Jennifer's death. He convinced her that you needed to pay. And Lauren, already obsessed with you, desperate for your attention, fell for it. So Lauren is a victim too? Andrew asked. In some ways, yes. But she still made the choice to poison you. She could have come to you, talked to you, sought help. Instead, she chose revenge. Chin closed the folder. The DA is still deciding on charges, but I thought you should know the full story. After Chin left, Andrew sat at his desk, his head in his hands. Brianna went to him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. It's not your fault, she said. None of this is your fault. Isn't it? If I'd been a better husband, if I'd noticed Jennifer was sick, if I'd been there when she collapsed, you'd still be human. You'd still have limits. You can't be everywhere at once, Andrew. You can't prevent every tragedy. Brianna knelt beside his chair so she could look him in the eye. Jennifer's death was terrible. Richard's grief twisted him. Lauren's obsession made her dangerous. But none of that is because of you. How can you be so sure? Because I know you. I've seen how you treat people, how you care. You're not perfect, but you're good. And good people deserve to forgive themselves. Andrew pulled her into a hug, holding on like she was the only solid thing in a world that kept shifting. Thank you. For being here. For not leaving when things got complicated. I'm not going anywhere, Brianna promised. They stayed like that for a long time, finding comfort in each other's presence. Outside, the world kept turning. Police continued their investigation. Lawyers prepared cases. Media outlets started picking up the story of the billionaire CEO who was nearly killed by his own assistant. But in that moment, in Andrew's office with his arms around her, Brianna felt safe. Felt certain that whatever came next, they'd face it together. Because that's what they did. They stood beside each other in the darkness and refused to let go. Later that afternoon, Andrew made phone calls. To his board of directors, explaining the situation. To his lawyer, discussing the legal implications. To his therapist, scheduling an emergency session. Brianna stayed close, a silent support. She made coffee, answered calls he didn't want to take, and shooed away reporters who somehow got through security. You're good at this, Andrew observed as she hung up on the fifth reporter. Good at what? Taking care of people. Being the calm in the storm. I've had practice. Taking care of Tyler taught me how to handle chaos. You should consider doing this professionally. Crisis management, personal consulting. You have a natural talent for it. Brianna laughed. Are you offering me a permanent job? Maybe. Once everything settles, if you want it, there's a place for you at Bennett Technologies. Not as my food consultant, but as something more. Chief of staff, maybe. Someone who can see what I miss, who can protect me from threats I don't see coming. That sounds important. It is. And you're the only person I trust to do it. Brianna considered this. A permanent position at a major tech company. A salary that would change her life. The chance to work alongside Andrew every day. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. No pressure. But the offer stands whenever you're ready. That evening, after Brianna went home, she sat with Tyler on their small couch and told him everything. About Lauren and Richard, about the poisoning attempts, about the arrest and the confession. Wow, Tyler said when she finished. That's like something from a movie. I know. I still can't believe it's real. Are you okay? That's a lot to process. I'm okay. Andrew is the one I'm worried about. He's dealing with so much. Tyler gave her a knowing look. You really care about him. Of course I do. He's been through something terrible. Bree, I know you. And I've never seen you look at anyone the way you look at him when you talk about him. You're in love with him. Brianna opened her mouth to deny it, then stopped. Was Tyler right? Had she fallen in love with Andrew Bennett somewhere between checking plates and investigating poisoners? I don't know, she said honestly. Maybe. But it's complicated. He's still grieving his wife. And I'm just someone amazing who saved his life and stood by him when he needed it most. Tyler finished. Bree, you deserve to be happy. If he makes you happy, don't let fear hold you back. That night, lying in bed, Brianna thought about Tyler's words. About Andrew's offer of a permanent position. About the possibility of building a life that didn't revolve around survival and struggle. About what it might mean to fall in love with a billionaire who looked at her like she was the most important person in his world. The investigation was over. The truth was revealed. The guilty would face justice. And ahead lay possibility. Frightening, exhilarating possibility. Brianna closed her eyes and let herself imagine it. A future where she and Andrew built something together. Where kindness and hope and love led the way. It was terrifying. It was wonderful. It was everything she'd never let herself want. And maybe, just maybe, it was exactly what both of them needed. 3 months passed. Lauren Webb pleaded guilty to attempted murder and embezzlement in exchange for a reduced sentence of 15 years. She gave a statement in court, tearful and remorseful, admitting that her obsession with Andrew had clouded her judgment. Richard Carter went to trial and was convicted on multiple charges, receiving a 30-year sentence. The media frenzy lasted about 6 weeks, then faded as news stories took over the headlines. Bennett Technologies weathered the scandal, and Andrew's openness about what had happened actually improved the company's image. He was seen as a survivor, someone who'd faced a serious threat and handled it with grace. Brianna had gone back to her apartment after the arrests, needing space to process everything. But Andrew called her every day. Sometimes to talk about the case, the trial preparations, the therapy sessions that were helping him work through trust issues. Sometimes just to talk about nothing, about the weather or a book he'd read or something funny that happened at work. I miss seeing you every day, he admitted one evening about a month after Lauren's arrest. I miss it too, Brianna said. But I think we both needed time to figure out who we are when we're not in crisis mode. And have you figured it out? I'm getting there. Tyler graduates in 2 months. I'm planning a party. I'd like to come. If that's okay. I'd like that too. Tyler's graduation party was held at their apartment, cramped but filled with love. Tyler's friends, some neighbors, a few teachers who'd supported him. And Andrew, who showed up with an enormous gift basket and immediately charmed everyone with his genuine interest in Tyler's plans for the future. So you want to be a structural engineer? Andrew asked Tyler. That's the goal. Bridges specifically. I love the idea of building things that connect people. That's a noble calling. And if you ever need an internship, Bennett Technologies has a growing infrastructure division. We're always looking for talented engineers. Tyler's eyes lit up. Really? That would be amazing. After the party, as guests filtered out, Andrew helped Brianna clean up. You didn't have to offer Tyler a job, she said as they washed dishes. I didn't offer him a job. I offered him an internship, and only if he earns it. But he's smart, Brianna. He's got drive. I'd be lucky to have him. Thank you. For being kind to him. It means a lot. Andrew dried a plate carefully. Can I ask you something? Of course. Have you thought about my job offer? The chief of staff position? Brianna had thought about it. Constantly. The job would pay twice what she made waitressing and working at the grocery store combined. It would mean stability, health insurance, a retirement plan. It would mean working alongside Andrew every day, being part of something bigger than herself. But it would also mean giving up her independence, stepping fully into Andrew's world. And she wasn't sure she was ready for that. I have thought about it, she said carefully. And I appreciate the offer. But I'm not sure I'm qualified for something that important. You're more qualified than you think. You're observant, intelligent, calm under pressure. You care about people. Those are exactly the qualities I need. Andrew? I know. You're worried about us working together, about what that would mean for whatever this is between us. He set down the dish towel and turned to face her. But here's the thing. I don't just want you working for me because you'd be good at it. I want you in my life, Brianna. Period. Whether that's as my employee or my friend or something more, I just want you there. Brianna's heart hammered. Something more? Yes, more. He took a step closer. I told you I wanted to take you to dinner, to see where this could go. I still want that. If you do. I do, Brianna said softly. I'm scared, but I do. Scared of what? Of losing myself. Of becoming Andrew Bennett's girlfriend, instead of just Brianna. Of our lives being so different that we can't make it work. She took a breath. And of caring about you so much that it hurts if things don't work out. Andrew reached out and took her hands. I can't promise things will be perfect. I'm still working through a lot with my therapist. I'm still learning how to trust again. But I can promise I'll be honest with you. And I can promise that I see you, Brianna Mitchell. Not just someone who saved my life. The person who raised her brother and worked 3 jobs and still found room to care about a stranger's poisoned plate. Okay, Brianna whispered. Okay. Let's try. Dinner. Dating. Whatever comes next. Let's see where it goes. Andrew smiled, a real smile that lit up his whole face. Yeah. He hugged her and she let herself lean into it, let herself feel safe in his arms. Behind them, Tyler cleared his throat. Just so you know, I fully approve of this, Tyler announced. And if you hurt my sister, Billionaire or not, I will find a way to make your life difficult. Andrew laughed. Noted. I'll do my best to be worthy of her. See that you do. Their first real date was a week later. Not at a fancy restaurant or a charity gala, but at a small Italian place in Brianna's neighborhood. They sat in a corner booth, eating pasta and talking about everything except the poisoning case and work. Tell me something about yourself that no one else knows, Andrew said. Brianna thought for a moment. I wanted to be a chef when I was younger. Before my parents died, I was planning to go to culinary school. But then we needed the money and Tyler needed stability and the dream just faded. You could still do it. Go to culinary school, I mean. I'm 27. That ship has sailed. Says who? You can do anything at any age. If you want to study cooking, study cooking. Brianna smiled. Maybe. What about you? What's something no one knows? I'm terrified of failure. Not in business, that's just money. But in relationships, in being a good person. I'm terrified I'll let down everyone who believes in me. He paused. That's why Jennifer's death hit so hard. It felt like the ultimate failure. But it wasn't your fault. I know that now. Therapy helps. But the fear is still there. I get that. I'm afraid of failing Tyler. Of not being enough for him. You're more than enough. Look at him. He's thriving. They talked until the restaurant closed, then walked slowly back to Brianna's apartment building. At her door, Andrew paused. I had a really nice time tonight, he said. Me too. Can we do this again? Soon. I'd like that. He leaned in and for a moment Brianna thought he might kiss her. But instead, he pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. Good night, Brianna. Good night, Andrew. She watched him walk back to his car, a smile on her face that wouldn't fade. Over the next month they fell into a routine. Dinner twice a week. Phone calls every night. Andrew introduced her to his friends and she introduced him to hers. They went to museums and movies and farmers markets. They argued about books and laughed at terrible jokes and learned each other's habits and quirks. And slowly, carefully they fell in love. It wasn't dramatic or sudden. It was quiet and steady, built on trust and understanding and the knowledge that they'd already seen each other at their worst and chosen to stay anyway. One evening, sitting in Andrew's garden watching the sunset, he said, I've been thinking. About you taking that job. Chief of Staff at Bennett Technologies. Andrew, we talked about this. I don't think it's a good idea to mix work and whatever this is between us. What if I offered you a different position? Not reporting to me directly but heading up a new division. Community relations and public engagement. You'd work with charities, organize outreach programs, build relationships between the company and the communities we serve. Brianna turned to look at him. That sounds amazing. But why that position? Because you're good with people. You see what they need and you care about helping. That's exactly what that division needs. And you'd report to the board, not to me, so there's no conflict of interest. You really thought this through. I did. Because I want you in my life, but I also want you to have your own career, your own success. This position would let you make a real difference while maintaining your independence. He took her hand. What do you say? I say you're pretty smart for a billionaire. Is that a yes? That's I need to think about it, but I'm seriously considering it. A week later, after discussing it with Tyler and weighing all her options, Brianna accepted the position. She started at Bennett Technologies, heading up the new community relations division. The work was challenging and rewarding, and she was good at it. She helped launch programs to support local schools, organized charity drives, and built partnerships with nonprofits throughout the city. Her team grew from just her to 5 people within 3 months. And in her personal life, things with Andrew deepened. 6 months after their first date, he told her he loved her. They were in his kitchen cooking dinner together when he just said it. I love you, Brianna. I thought you should know. She dropped the wooden spoon she was holding. What? I love you. You're brilliant and kind, and you make me want to be better. I love you. I love you too, she said, surprise and joy mixing in her voice. I think I have for a while now. He kissed her then, properly kissed her for the first time, and it felt like coming home. Tyler moved out after graduation, taking an apartment closer to the Bennett Technologies office where he'd started his internship. He was thriving, happy, building his own life. You did good, sis, he told Brianna when she helped him move in. You raised me right. We raised each other, she corrected. Life was good. Better than good. Brianna had meaningful work, people she loved, and a future that looked bright instead of scary. The nightmares from the poisoning case faded. Lauren sent her a letter from prison, apologizing and wishing her well. Brianna read it once and then threw it away. Some things didn't need to be kept. One evening, 9 months after their first date, Andrew took Brianna back to Azure Heights, the restaurant where everything had started. Why here? She asked as they sat at a different table than the one he'd used before. Because this is where you saved my life. Where our story really began. I wanted to come back and make new memories here, good ones. They had a wonderful meal. No poison plates, no danger, just good food and better company. And when dessert arrived, Brianna noticed something different about it. There was a ring nestled in the chocolate mousse. Andrew? Her voice shook. He got down on one knee beside the table, ignoring the other diners who had started watching. Brianna Mitchell, you saved my life in more ways than one. You taught me to trust again, to hope again, to love again. You're the kindest, strongest, most amazing person I know. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Brianna's face. Yes. Yes, of course, yes. The restaurant erupted in applause as Andrew slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her. And Brianna thought about how far they'd come, from a poisoned plate and a dangerous investigation to this moment of pure joy. Kindness had led her to notice that plate. Hope had led her to get involved. Love had led her here, to a proposal in a restaurant, to a future with a man who saw all of her and loved all of her. This was healing. This was hope. This was everything she'd never known she was allowed to want. And it was only the beginning. 6 months later, on a perfect spring day, Brianna Mitchell married Andrew Bennett in the garden where they'd shared so many conversations. The guest list was small. Tyler and his girlfriend, Phil and Marie, a few close friends, and Andrew's therapist who'd helped him rebuild his ability to trust. Brianna wore a simple white dress, nothing fancy or elaborate. Just clean lines and flowing fabric that moved when she walked. In her hands, she carried a bouquet of roses, a tribute to Jennifer and a promise of new beginnings. Andrew waited for her at an arch covered in flowers, wearing a navy suit and the biggest smile she'd ever seen on his face. Tyler walked her down the aisle, his arms steady under hers. I'm proud of you, he whispered. Mom and Dad would be too. I know, Brianna whispered back. I feel them here. The ceremony was short and sweet. They'd written their own vows, promises that spoke to their journey together. Brianna, Andrew said, his voice strong and clear. You saw me when I was invisible, even to myself. You noticed what others missed, and you acted when others would have walked away. You saved my life, and then you taught me how to live it again. I promise to see you the way you see others. Completely, honestly, with all the love in my heart. I promise to stand beside you in darkness and in light. I promise to be worthy of the trust you've placed in me. I love you. Brianna's turn. She took a breath, steadying herself. Andrew, you asked for help when you needed it, and that took more courage than most people realize. You trusted me when you had every reason not to. You supported me and Tyler without being asked, without expecting anything in return. You showed me that good people still exist, that kindness is possible even in the hardest times. I promise to be your partner in all things. I promise to tell you the truth even when it's hard. I promise to check your food forever. The guests laughed at that. I love you with everything I am. They exchanged rings, simple gold bands. When the officiant said, "You may kiss," Andrew pulled Brianna close and kissed her like they were the only two people in the world. The reception was held right there in the garden. Long tables covered in white cloth, good food prepared by Marie, music from a string quartet. Nothing overly fancy, just perfect. Tyler gave a toast that made everyone cry and laugh. When our parents died, Brianna became more than my sister. She became my parent, my friend, my hero. She worked herself to exhaustion to give me opportunities she never had. She taught me that kindness matters more than money, that hope is a choice, that love is action, not just words. Andrew, you're getting the best person I know. Take care of her. Love her the way she loves everyone else. Completely, without reservation, with everything you have. And Bree, I'm so happy you found someone who sees you the way you deserve to be seen. Congratulations to both of you. Phil gave a short toast about watching Andrew transform from a man going through the motions to someone truly alive. Marie talked about how Brianna had brought laughter and warmth back into the house. Even Andrew's therapist said a few words about the power of healing and hope. As the sun set and lanterns were lit throughout the garden, Andrew and Brianna danced to their song. Not something romantic and traditional, but a jazz standard that made them both smile. "Mrs. Bennett," Andrew said as they swayed together. "How does it feel?" "Perfect. And you can call me Brianna Mitchell Bennett. I'm keeping my name too. Even better. Brianna Mitchell Bennett, the woman who saved my life and stole my heart. That's quite a title. You've earned it." He pulled her closer. "Thank you for saying yes. To all of it. The job, the relationship, this. You could have walked away so many times. So could you. But we didn't. We stayed and we built something beautiful." Later, after most of the guests had left, Brianna and Andrew sat on a bench in the garden, watching the stars come out. Tyler and his girlfriend were cleaning up with Marie and Phil, laughing together. "I keep thinking about that night at the restaurant," Brianna said. "When I swapped your plate. I almost didn't. I almost convinced myself I was being paranoid. I'm glad you didn't talk yourself out of it." "Me too. But it's more than that. If I hadn't noticed, if I hadn't acted, neither of us would be here right now. You'd be dead and I'd still be working 3 jobs trying to survive. One moment changed everything. That's what moments do. They change us, reshape our paths. The question is whether we have the courage to step into them." "You had courage. You asked for help instead of facing everything alone. Because of you. You made asking for help feel safe." Andrew turned to face her. "I want to tell you something. About Jennifer." Brianna waited, giving him space to find the words. "I'll always love her. She was part of my life, part of who I became. But loving her doesn't mean I can't love you. Doesn't mean you're second best or a replacement. You're different, separate, your own person. And I love you for exactly who you are." "I know," Brianna said softly. "I never doubted that." "Good. Because you're my future, Brianna. Not my past. My future. Everything I want to build with you." They kissed as the stars wheeled overhead, as their friends celebrated in the garden, as the world spun on with all its chaos and beauty. This was the happy ending Brianna had barely let herself dream about. Love that was real and earned. Security that came from partnership, not just money. A future that stretched out bright and hopeful. The poisoning case was closed. Lauren and Richard were in prison paying for their crimes. Andrew had healed, with therapy and time and the love of someone who saw him completely. Brianna had found her place in the world, not just as Andrew's wife but as her own person with her own career and her own accomplishments. Tyler was thriving, building his own dreams with Andrew's support but his own hard work. And together, Andrew and Brianna were creating something new. A family built on choice, not blood. A partnership built on trust, not obligation. A love built on kindness, hope, and the belief that good things could happen to good people if they just had the courage to reach for them. The next morning, they left for their honeymoon. 2 weeks in Italy, eating amazing food and exploring ancient cities and simply being together without the weight of the past pressing down on them. But they'd return to the life they were building. To Bennett Technologies and the community relations division that was changing lives. To Tyler and his budding engineering career. To friends and family and all the beautiful, messy complexity of real life. And they'd face it together with kindness and hope and love leading the way. Because that's what mattered. Not wealth or status or power. But the choice to be good, to help others, to stand beside the people you love when they need you most. Brianna Mitchell Bennett had learned that lesson the night she swapped a poison plate. Andrew Bennett had learned it the night he said please to a waitress and asked for help. Together they would never forget it. Their story started with danger and suspicion, with slow poison and desperate investigations. But it ended with joy and promise, with rings and vows and a future full of possibilities. Love won. Kindness won. Hope won. And in the end, that's all that really matters.